So you can probably hear the rain, and obviously I'm in a car right now. I was supposed to meet a client to go over the post-publishing process, their marketing and advertising, because I help people, in addition to writing my own books, I help other people write and publish and then market and advertise their books. And anyway, I was supposed to meet one of my clients today, but she canceled at the last minute. And it's been storming, so that's why she canceled, because of the weather. And it's not storming right now, it's just kind of raining, so you can probably hear the rain falling on the car. I should have gone inside to do this video, but I'm just too lazy and I want to sit in the car for a minute. Hence me filming this YouTube video in the car. But today I wanted to talk about what inspired the writing process, or I don't know, the writing of one of my latest romance novels, which is called The Bake Off. And The Bake Off is about these two chefs who grew up together in a small town, Holly and Dean. Holly Schmidt is, even though, okay, the way I wrote the book is one chapter will be from Holly's perspective, the next chapter will be from Dean's perspective, and so forth. But for me, Holly is really the main character. I mean, like, she's the focal point of the book. And I didn't even, when I was writing it, I didn't really intend to write anything from Dean's perspective, but that just sort of happened. As I was writing, I realized, you know what? Maybe we need a break from Holly's head, and maybe it would help if we saw Holly from a different perspective to see what she really is like to other people. So let me do some of these, let me do every other chapter from Dean's perspective. But for me, Holly is still really the heart of the book. And I wrote her story because she's someone who feels very real to me, even though she's a fictional character. Like, if I knew Holly in real life, we would be best friends. Because there's a lot about her that I can relate to. She, I don't know that she's an INFP when it comes to personality types, but she's very close to an INFP, if not an INFP. I think she might be like, she might be an INFJ or INTJ, but she is a very sensitive person. She's a highly sensitive person. She's very empathetic, and she thinks the best of people. But that, even though those are good qualities and it's a nice way to be, it's also put her in some really sticky situations where she hasn't realized that people have bad intentions in their interactions with her. Like, it takes her longer than normal to realize that. And then when she does realize it, she has a lot of trouble standing up for herself. And those are some things that I took, I guess those aspects of her personality I did take from my own. I borrowed from my own personality in certain situations. Not all the time, but, you know, in some situations. Like, there have been times in my life where, and maybe everybody goes through this, but where, like, I'll know that someone is doing something wrong or inappropriate that is hurting me, and I will just not do anything. Like, it's like a deer in headlights moment where you just freeze. And but that's not who I am. Like, there have been plenty other times where I see someone doing something inappropriate to me or to someone else, and I will be very vocal and, like, you know, make it, do whatever it takes to make it stop. But so in those times where I froze and where I didn't stand up for myself, it's kind of haunting, you know, as you move forward and you look back, you move forward in life and you look back on those moments. And when I've done that, I've been like, why? What was wrong with me? Like, why did I freeze? That doesn't make any sense. So I think that is part of what inspired Holly's story, because she is the kind of person who is always like that. She never stands up for herself. It's like she doesn't know her, she doesn't know, she didn't have a voice at the beginning of the book. And I hate to put it that way because everyone has a voice, whether it's very soft or they just haven't found it yet. So maybe I should say that. At the start of the story, Holly has not found her voice. And she's a young woman. She's in her mid to late 20s. So, and it's not uncommon. The older I get, the more I see that it's not uncommon at all for women, especially young women in their 20s, to have not found their voice yet. And they just kind of accept whatever is happening to them. They don't really know how to stand up for themselves yet. And Holly is like that. But she starts to understand more about who she is and her own strength as we move through the story with her. And by the end, she has found her voice. So even though this is a romance novel, I think the true romance in the Bake Off is not between Holly and Dean, even though of course there is like a lot of chemistry and sexual tension and all that great stuff there. But the true romance, I believe, is Holly falling in love with herself in a healthy way. Not like she's some narcissistic, crazy person, but just in a healthy way. Like she starts to realize her own value and starts to have so much esteem for herself, or starts to have the proper amount of esteem for herself, so much so that she learns how to stand up for herself. So I wrote her story because, like I said, I could relate to certain aspects of her personality in specific moments in my life. And it helped me, writing it helped me to reflect on why I am the way I am sometimes and why I'm not that way at other times. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about writing is it helps you to really, really understand yourself in a way that most people, it would probably take like a bunch of therapy sessions for them to understand these things about themselves. But with writing, you're going so deep and you're revealing so much of who you are at your core that it's painful at times, but it's also healing. It's painful to go through that, but when you come out on the other side and realize more about yourself, it's healing because it helps you to move forward and be a better version of yourself, I think. Also, I will say that because some of the chapters in the book were written from Dean's perspective, Holly's love interest, that kind of helped to build my empathy for a man from that cultural background, because Dean and Holly, they're different cultures than I am. I am a hearing. I have my hearing, so I'm a hearing Black American woman who grew up in the Deep South. Holly is a Cuban Jewish woman who is also known as a CODA, or child of deaf adult, meaning that her culture is deaf culture. So her first language that she knew, even though she can hear because her mother's deaf, the first language that she was exposed to and that she used to communicate was American Sign Language. And that those cultures have shaped the way she sees herself in this small town where there's nobody else like her, ethnically or culturally deaf, other than like her mother, you know, and maybe like her mother's adult deaf friends. But so Holly and I are different in that way. And Dean, he is like, I didn't go into too much detail. I mean, he could be like, I don't know, he could be of Irish ancestry or Germanic or something, but he is basically, I hate saying white, but I hate saying like white and black. It's annoying, but that is what we call each other. He's a white guy from the deep South, and he comes from like a, you know, a family that does pretty well for themselves. They're not like super wealthy, but they are comfortable. So his life, and he's also very handsome. That's a big important thing, because you know how it is. Like beautiful people, they get a lot of perks in life. So he's used to just getting whatever he wants, but that doesn't mean his life was easy. Like the more I wrote from Dean's perspective, the more I realized that he had a lot. He had just as many issues with his self-esteem as Holly did. Different issues, but still a lot. And there was a lot that weighed on him too. Like, some of it has to do with guilt from having privilege. But then other aspects of his issues had nothing to do with his privilege, or very little to do with his supposed privilege, but a lot to do with just how being a guy is difficult, because so much is expected of you, and guys are not always treated very well. Like, I know a lot of times if I'm walking into a store or something, this is just a little example. If I'm walking into like a store or a gas station or whatever, and it doesn't have automatic doors, if someone is ahead of me, not always, because this is the South and I am a black woman, but a lot of times, usually, if it's a guy in front of me, or even a girl, they'll open the door. They'll like hold the door for me. And I'm always really appreciative of that. Because I'm a germaphobe and I don't like to touch the doors. So I'm always like, thank you so much when somebody opens the door for me. But a lot of times guys, they don't have that. Like, who opens the door for them? They don't have that. And I know that's just a little tiny thing, but that kind of illustrates what life is like for a lot of men. Like, so much is expected of them because they're men. They're supposed to like do things and be, I don't know, what's the word? Like, be alphas or whatever, which is so stupid. And so sometimes all they have to do is walk into a room and all the guys in the room are like, oh, competition. And they're mean to them just because it's a guy. So that would be difficult. That is difficult for a character like Dean, who is not, I mean, he is competitive, but to a fault, but he's also a nice guy. Like, in his core, he's a nice person, and he doesn't want all this conflict with people all the time. But sometimes people just look at him and there's conflict just from seeing that he's a nice looking, privileged looking guy. So yeah, I kind of went off on a tangent there about him, but even though in writing the book, I didn't get as deep into Dean's character as I did, and his flaws, as I did with Holly. As I was writing from his perspective, his chapters, I felt it. If I were a better writer, I would have done better at like showing what I was feeling, but you know, maybe future books I'll get there. But I guess my point is that I am grateful and appreciative for the chance to write from the perspectives of people who are different cultures from me, to see what we have in common despite outward differences. Yeah, supposed differences, I guess you could say. You know, yeah, writing is just it's a gift and a privilege to be able to do that. to have such an exercise in empathy. Yeah. All right. Well, I suppose that is all for now. I'm just sitting here rambling in the car while it's raining about a book that like 6 people have read. So if you would like to be the 7th person to read The Bake Off by Paula L. Jones, you can find it on Amazon under The Bake Off by Paula L. Jones. Or you can visit my website, which is authorpaulaljones.com. Thank you for making it through yet another long-winded and rather pointless video. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.